Hey everybody, how's it going? So a few years ago when I was looking for a new store, actually 1 year ago, it just seems like many years have passed with all the stress that's occurred in 2020. Notice the gray hair. I was looking for a new place, and one of the first places that I looked at was an absolute dump. And rather than make the place cheaper, rather than do construction to make it less of a dump, they offered me up to a year of free rent, and then when we bargained really hard, even up to a year and a half to 2 years of free rent, so long as I did not ask for a lower price. That was interesting to me. It's also been interesting throughout the real estate series when I was looking for a new store to actually move into, and when I just kind of started looking at spaces in the area for lulz, I noticed more and more that there are these spaces that are astronomically priced. I don't even mean where there can even be any sort of argument that, Lewis, you're just a bad business owner, because just because you can't make $60,000 a month out of a box doesn't mean someone else can't, with money laundering and illegal activity, but where it's just absolutely, completely, utterly ridiculous. No one's ever going to make it in that place, and that's why the place that I show has been vacant for 3 or 4 or 6 or 8 years, because no one can afford it. Why does it still stay empty? Why is it that the landlord is not willing to lower the rent from, let's say, $70,000 to $50,000 if no one's wanted to occupy that place for almost 10 years? Well, there's a good post on Reddit that a lot of people have been linking me to that I'd like to read, and he proposes an excellent theory. This post on Reddit has over 200 upvotes. It's got over 200 upvotes on Reddit. It might as well be in an encyclopedia. That's as close to the truth as you're going to get. So let's read it. With BlackBerry. It's similar to this, but slightly different. And it's also the number one reason commercial spaces sat vacant even prior to COVID. A lot of these landlords can't lower rent due to the language in their commercial mortgages. Frequently, there will be language like, if rent is below X dollars, the borrower must recollateralize the loan. That's business language for, and I'm making up numbers here, if you don't rent this space for less than $10,000 a month, the borrower must write a check for $250,000 to account for the reduced value of the leased property. In some cases, if the rent is below a certain level, the entire loan goes into technical default and the landlord loses everything. The complicated part is that this isn't just evil banks. The banks don't hold these loans. They are parsed out to investors as CMBS, commercial mortgage-backed securities. So depending on the language in the CMBS origination document, you might have to get, say, 80% approval from the investors, which is really hard to approve even a single loan modification. Real estate is just super complicated, and people think they have a grasp of it because they kind of know how a home mortgage works, but commercial real estate is nothing like the housing market. And then someone asks for some clarification, and his response here is, this is stupid complicated, but I'll give it a shot. Also understand this is usually explained like I'm 5 and I'm glossing over and simplifying a lot. Commercial real estate is still very much a handshake type of business where relationships matter. We can lump commercial properties and apartment buildings together here, even though they are slightly different. So you want to buy a building. You go to the bank with your business plan. I'm going to buy this building that has 4 units. Currently, these 4 units are generating $20,000 a month in rent. As a very general rule of thumb, a property's value is about 12 to 14 times the annual rent. There are huge situation-specific variables, but this is a starting point. So, let's say our building is currently worth $20,000 a month times 12 months times 13, or about $3.1 million. This is roughly the current market price for this property. However, in reality, everyone selling tries to get a little more, so the actual selling price would be like $3.3 million. The bank will be willing to lend you about 85% of the fair market value, $2.7 million, and you have to come up with the rest. But that sucks, because you don't want to put $600,000 of your own money into it. So you're clever. You go to Dwayne Reed, Starbucks, a new retailer, and a new restaurant and get them to commit to leases on the new property before you even own it, of $6,000 a month. Now, going through the same math above, you could argue that with your new plan, the building is actually worth $6,000 times 40 units times 12 months times 13, $3.7 million, and you're only requesting a loan for $3.3 million, and the bank is getting a $400,000 cushion. So the bank will fund the whole project, and you don't need to tie up your money. But the bank isn't stupid. They want to guarantee that you can get the $6,000 a month, and if you fail, you're in default. Also, you're required to maintain that $400,000 cushion to protect the bank. And a weird thing to understand about commercial mortgages is that, while you have a vacant space, you can choose to take part of what you owe and tack it on to the end of the mortgage. So if you have 3 spaces rented, you can choose to pay 3/4 of your mortgage and tack the fourth plus interest to the end of the lease. So 2 years in, the restaurant and the retailer fail. You've got 2 spaces to fill. You ask around the lot, but the best you can get is say $5,000 a month. The bank is going to say, well, your new rent is only $22,000 a month, not $24,000. So your building is now worth $3.4 million. The bank's cushion is only $100,000 now. So they're going to call you and say, if you sign this lease, you owe us a check for $300,000 to restore our cushion. So you can't sign those leases economically. So you don't sign the new tenant and you continue to tack the missing rent income on the end of the mortgage. You pray and delay, hoping that, say, Chase Bank wants to open a branch in your building and pay you over $6,000 a month. In reality, the metric isn't rent, it's actually the funds from operations, which is basically your cash profit. It's rent minus direct expenses and maintenance/reinvestment and a few other things. I just use rent to simplify things. If the best you can find in rent is, say, $4,000 a month, the fair value of the building is $3.1 million, but you owe $3.3 million and the loan is now underwater. You have to either write a gigantic check or you are in default and the building gets seized. Why can't you get a modification to the terms? You can't. It's just really hard. Your loan isn't held by the bank. It was almost immediately sold to be put into a structured product called CMBS that's held by anywhere between 50 and 500 investors like mutual funds, hedge funds, pension funds, endowments, etc. CMBS means commercial mortgage-backed security. All right, so I was close. It's like a box you put a ton of mortgages in, and it's divided up and sold to investors. In the CMBS origination documents, there is language about how to modify the underlying loans. Generally, but not always, you need a vote of the holders to approve modifications. 60 to 80% is common, but some things you see 50.1% and sometimes you see 100% required. Here's the thing. Investors in a CMBS will have invested in a different order of risk. The first people paid are called senior holders, and the last people paid are called junior equity holders. If I am a senior holder, I want the bank to modify the loan ASAP because all the losses from the loan hit the lowest tranche of the CMBS, and fuck those guys. If I'm junior, I do not want to modify the lease because it forces me to absorb the loss immediately. I'd rather pray and delay and hope the landlord can find a good tenant. So the investors in the CMBS are voting against each other, which makes getting a strong majority close to impossible. That said, COVID is changing everything. I can honestly say I've seen 10 times more modifications in the last 3 months than I saw in my entire career, including the great financial crisis. There is a huge flurry of activity happening in the commercial finance sector that no one outside the industry is talking about. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't have the first clue about real estate, and as I've said in many of these videos, I don't understand commercial real estate. When you say, Lewis, you have no idea what you're talking about commercial real estate, I do. At the same time, I know that a tiny little shitbox is not going to be worth $40,000. Now, when I originally started theorizing why this was the case, I thought that the issue is that if they rent it out for less money, the bank will see that it's valued as less, and since this is a bank-owned asset of some sort, or maybe the bank owns part of it, they will tell the person who is the landlord, you can't rent out for less than this, or the building is worth less, which means we can loan out less, which means we're going to ask more from you, or something like that. I didn't have the exact details down, but I got enough of it right to know that there was some screwiness going on with regards to why landlords would let a property sit and ask $40,000 when there's a line of people willing to pay $20,000 and for 8 years nobody willing to pay $40,000. And as you can see here, this pray and delay strategy is something that I think most people are going to go for. You know, I speak as someone who, after I was taking this medication a while back that caused me to gain 30 pounds, and when I stopped taking it and it was time to exercise, let's just say that the pray and delay versus exercise strategy, it is very easy to choose procrastination. I understand that when you give humans a choice, procrastination and hope for the best is often going to win, even if it is not a great strategy. If you're going to have to contact 50 different investors and get them to decide amongst themselves whether or not you're allowed to lower the cost of a loan, it probably is easier to you if you have a bunch of other properties to just say, all right, I'll just leave this there and hope for the best, and, you know, it's going to be in 20 or 30 years that this is going to get tacked on to that, but in 20 or 30 years, that'll be someone else's problem, because this property will be sold to someone else. I'll have gotten the rental income from my other properties. Just kick the can down the road. Don't care if the neighborhood goes to shit. Don't care if nobody can rent it. Don't care if it destroys economic opportunity in the area. Don't care if it kills jobs in the area. Don't care if it kills morale in a neighborhood that people used to enjoy. And the thing that I think is sad about all of this, if this is indeed how it occurs, and I think it would honestly be really cool to have someone like Laminar Flow on the channel for an interview or just a discussion of how this stuff works to help educate me so that I can start to understand commercial real estate, would be, I think what's interesting here is how this system of investing seems to be doing the opposite of what investing is supposed to do. So the whole concept is that if you're pooling money together, or you have a bunch of people that pool money into an idea, or a bunch of people who invest into an idea, it will allow you to explore areas or to create innovation, devices, services, knowledge that otherwise would have not been available because the people who would have wanted to create that didn't have the money available. Here it seems to be doing literally the exact opposite. You are taking properties that used to be owned by, let's say, smaller building owners that where you're taking these properties that used to be productive and you're actually creating this bureaucracy which is going to make things, it's slower to respond to market conditions, and you're creating an incentive structure to leave properties open. So what is the purpose of a piece of land? You're supposed to do something on it. You're supposed to cultivate it. You know, in the old days, you would grow a garden or you would farm and you would try to create things that were food, stuff that's useful for society. Nowadays, maybe you use it to, I don't know, sell random stuff, fix MacBooks, fix cars, use it to have a restaurant or have a locksmith or whatever. You use that land to service the people around you with services, products, goods, and so on and so forth. So if you have a system in place where a city like New York can easily start to get hollowed out slowly because the incentive structure is such that it makes more sense to leave it empty than it is to rent it, you got to start wondering how efficient that system is. And it's kind of sad that this system has come into place and that there is a genuine financial incentive to do that which makes no sense, because having a property bring in $10,000 a month is not as good as 30, but $10,000 is way better than zero for 8 years. Many of the properties that I looked at in 2011, 2020 are still empty. Now, would for the 3 or 5,000 I was offering have been great? No, but you add that up, 12 months, over 8 years. I don't know, let's do some basic math here. Even if you didn't have increases in the price over time, man, it's $384,000 you missed out on. Now, the fact that it's actually worth it to miss out on that $384,000 just so that you can continue to keep up that supposed value of the property really does show how real estate, specifically commercial real estate, particularly in environments like New York, is a giant Ponzi scheme. And one need only walk around the city over the past 10 to 15 years to understand that there are lots of places that are completely empty, where there is an read posts like this and understand that there is an actual financial incentive to not take money from people that would then use that space that you're giving them in exchange for the money to provide products and services. That's absolutely insane. To be clear here, the issue seems to be more that of a Ponzi scheme and corruption than even greed. Because I'm not saying that I have a problem with someone that wants to make money. I don't have a problem with you wanting to make money. The issue here is that this system has been engineered in a way where someone is going to be disincentivized from being able to take someone else's money in exchange for goods and services, because doing so would disrupt someone else's Ponzi scheme. That is where you realize this entire shit has run amok and should be rethought from the ground up, at the very least, in how you deal with this type of real estate. Because this is a ridiculously bureaucratic, top-heavy system that does not allow you to react to market conditions. It doesn't allow free market transactions to take place, and it doesn't allow you to freely exchange money for goods and services. And what's interesting is, as much as I was off in my estimation about, who the specific players are and why things are the way they are, I'm honestly kind of surprised that I was that close, and I don't think that it even requires a genius. If someone tells you, listen, I'll give you 2 or 3 years free rent, just don't ask for a dime off the price, it doesn't really take a genius to figure out that there's something like this going on behind the scenes. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video, maybe someone else. I am in the middle of training an assistant so that I can go on vacation. Bye now.
Should I go? Wait, Aiden. Thing. Should I go?
Go for it.
Okay. Hey, everybody. So, Wait, wait. How do you start your intro? How do you usually start your intro?
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Okay. Hey everybody. So today I want to talk to you about some overpriced real estate video.
How am I supposed to be able to go on vacation if you can't do these?
Huh?
I want a vacation.
You're gonna get there. Just after I stop laughing.
Video, Erica, video!
Okay. Wait. So I don't know. You usually put your hands like this, and then you're like, "Hey, everybody." I think my shirt color looks too happy to be on this chair.
Get out of here.
What?
Get out of here.
What?
You're fired.
I'm fired.
You're fired.
Wait, I wanted to start my influencer journey.
You're fired. Get out of here.
Ah.
Hey everybody. God damn you.